Crypto community, this is Jade, the XRP Martian, back with another XRP related video. In this one, we're going to be listening to a clip from Fox Business with the one and only, the real BG, sitting here feeding us all kinds of wonderful breadcrumbs. I believe Alex Cobb is the one who coined that term, right? So shout out to Alex Cobb. Thank you for that awesome term. I love it. I love using it all the time. And I think it was Alex that coined it. So if I'm wrong, put it in the comments who actually coined that, because he is the first person I heard say it. At any rate, enough shouting out other YouTubers. Yeah, I know everybody came here to see what Brad has to say about the G7, right? So without further ado, let's hop right into this, and we'll talk about what I find really interesting about how Fox presents Ripple, right? It's really very interesting, especially if you've been following the United States press releases and the news that I've provided to you over the past few days. So if you haven't already watched my other videos, news related, go check them out, especially anything related to the US Treasury and the G7 meetings, right? I did an 11-hour live stream dedicated to it. It's a lot of stuff. I still need to dig through that and find all the good information for all of you. So I'm rambling. But I just want everybody to know that there are the resources here on my channel to fully understand the things that I'm going to break down for you after we listen to this. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into it.
Crypto concerns. Finance ministers from the G7, a group of the world's largest economies, are warning about the quote-unquote serious risks posed by cryptocurrencies, including Facebook's Libra. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin talked about it earlier in the week.
The Treasury Department has expressed very serious concerns that Libra could be misused by money launderers and terrorist financiers. Cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin have been exploited to support billions of dollars of illicit activity like cybercrime, tax evasion, extortion, ransomware, illicit drugs, human trafficking. Many players have attempted to use cryptocurrencies to fund their malign behavior. This is indeed a national security issue.
Joining us right now is the CEO of Ripple. He is Brad Garlinghouse. And Brad, it's good to have you on the show this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
So let's start off with what they began with on Fox News, right? They began talking about Libra coin and Bitcoin. Now, as I pointed out in my video where we discussed the Trump tweets that happened earlier this month, where he is coming out saying that Bitcoin is a piece of crap based on thin air, speculation and unregulated crypto, and Trump does not like unregulated crypto assets. Very critical word that he used there. And then very next day, what happens? We get that little press conference that we just got a little snippet from. If you want to hear the full thing, I know Alex Cobb streamed it. I believe I have large clips in videos as well. So, pardon me. So it's interesting because the Fox is starting off with saying, "Hey, Libra coin and Bitcoin, they're scary stuff. Libra coin is trying to usurp the dollar, and Bitcoin is used for all this illegal, scary, horrible things." But here before us now is somebody. And we're talking about the G7 saying how these things are a risk to the global financial system, right? They were using the U.S. Treasury as an example of the risk these pose. So, Brad Garlinghouse, what is Ripple doing different from these two groups? And why should people know about Ripple?
Thanks. Good morning.
So first, let's explain Ripple, providing one frictionless experience to send money globally using the power of blockchain. You've got a growing global network. Your reaction to what you just heard from Steven Mnuchin in terms of the threats that cryptocurrencies represent?
I actually very much agree with the Secretary. I agree with what the President tweeted last week on these points. It's critical that as we think about these new technologies, really like any new technology, that they are thinking about regulatory frameworks. I do think that some in the cryptocurrency world have taken an approach of how do we circumvent governments, how do we circumvent regulation. But I think it's also clear that we shouldn't paint this with one broad brush. Any new technology can be abused in various ways. What Ripple is doing is enabling regulated institutions, banks. We partner with some of the largest banks in the world to help them more easily move money around on a cross-border basis. So I very much agree with the Secretary and the President on these points, and I think what we need to be clear about for the U.S., though, for regulatory policy, is that this isn't one big, broad brush, everything's the same, because then I think we risk stifling innovation here in the United States.
So do you not?
Before she goes on to try and, well, really, this report is very interesting because anybody who's familiar with how mainstream media operates, when they don't like a narrative that a guest is pitching to them, they argue with it. Instead, what you're about to see is Fox News, by and large, agree and throw Brad what are called softball pitches. You know, it's Brad's own term. It's a softball so that he can just crack it out of the park, right? And that was a terrible swing, right? You know, not even locking my elbows. I didn't even do it there while I tried to redo it. But at any rate, you know, Brad makes it really clear there that, you know, just like the host said, the Fox News business host said, I don't know her name, he points out that, yeah, you know, LibreCoin and Bitcoin, they're these things that aren't really, you know, they're trying to play outside of the regulatory framework, and that's not good because, you know, it allows for a lot of bad actors in the space, and that's detrimental to the ecosystem as a whole. And so, you know, Ripple is going about things differently. They are working with the largest financial institutions in the world. Instead of trying to usurp them, instead of trying to destabilize the global system, they are trying to help these incumbents, these forerunners, if you will, to integrate into this new blockchain revolution so that instead of the world becoming destabilized by this ecosystem, it finds a solid foundation for stability so that the already unstable fiat system doesn't come crashing down and obliterate the entire global economy and we're all going to World War III. Because that's what happens when a global financial system crashes, right? If your local economy crashes, you might have a civil war. If the global economy crashes, you're gonna have a world war. And so that's why it's so critical. That's why you hear such dire language being used by individuals in the financial industry when they talk about what's going on. It's really scary stuff. So eyes peeled, and let's listen to what Brad has to say in regards to this next follow-up question.
Consider Ripple a crypto mechanism?
No, for sure. Ripple is a blockchain company. We use what I call a digital asset as opposed to a cryptocurrency.
Okay, digital asset versus cryptocurrency. Because the Journal this morning the Journal editorial board is out with an op-ed, and they're talking about cryptocurrency in an article titled "Cryptocurrency to the Rescue," writing that Facebook's cryptocurrency ecosystem needs to be fleshed out and potential weaknesses explored, but it could provide low-income Americans with a cheap banking alternative and perhaps put pressure on banks to lower fees. So will regulators and politicians allow it? Now, James Freeman is here from the editorial board, from the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Explain this.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Brad. I mean, I understand you partner with the banks, but for customers who maybe miss some of those free checking deals that they used to get, aren't some of these cryptocurrencies a way to allow easier, cheaper financial services than they're getting from banks? And of course, a lot of people aren't using banks, partly because of cost.
Yeah, look, I don't think in my lifetime the banks are going to go away. What we focus on is how do we make the banks more efficient, more competitive. You know, what we have seen happen here in the United States in some ways is actually around the regulatory framework for crypto is we've seen the U.S. government do things that is favoring Chinese-controlled technologies like Bitcoin and Ether as examples at the expense, frankly, of a U.S. company paying hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S. taxes and employing U.S. citizens.
So I want to touch real quickly on the question, on this narrative they just spun, right? So what does the Fox News host say? Well, they go back to Libra and they're like, well, Libra is, they're saying that's this bad thing. It could destabilize the economy, that they're not paying attention. They don't care what the governments have to say. It's kind of anarchist in that sense. But at the end of the day, it could help, consumers. It could help the average Joe, you and me, to save money, which is going to force banks to be more competitive with their rates. Well, here's the issue. The correspondent banking system that is currently in place doesn't allow for that kind of, cost cut, that expenditure cut on their end to be able to offer you, the customer, that kind of competitive rate without themselves digging into debt because their business models are no longer financially profitable. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Well, Brad just came out and said it. Well, hey, listen, Facebook coin's doing its thing, but what XRP, what Ripple is doing is, we're already working with some of the biggest banks, as he said in the last little clip. And what we're helping those biggest banks do is to be more competitive. That means he's helping them reduce costs and therefore reduce customer expenses, therefore maintaining their competitive edge in a market where LibreCoin will pose a serious threat to these individuals, right? So go on, Brad. You are killing it here on Fox Business. What do you got to conclude here? Let's hear these the last 20 seconds here, last 30 seconds, right?
We can solve these problems using these technologies much the same way the earliest days of the internet 25 years ago. The U.S. government created a framework that allowed companies to invest and build on top of these technologies. I think we should look at blockchain and crypto in very much the same way.
All right, we will leave it there. Brad, great to have you on the show. Thanks
And
so
so-
much. We'd love you to come back.
And so there you have it. Brad's saying that that Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two top cryptocurrencies, they're China-controlled cryptocurrencies. He's saying it on national TV. It doesn't matter if you're a Bitcoin maximalist or not, and you think it's true or false. The fact of the matter is that somebody in the blockchain industry, a CEO and expert, is sitting there on TV telling the non-expert average masses that Bitcoin and Ethereum, they are largely scams. They are Chinese-controlled systems. They are not decentralized, and they're bad for U.S. business because all that money that could be kept here in America by employing American citizens at Ripple's San Francisco office, they're being lost to that value is being lost to elsewhere, to foreign nations. And so Americans who are watching Fox Business, we need to really focus on blockchain solutions that are being homegrown, right? Here in America, good old US of A, and that would be Ripple Labs. That'd be the number one, at least in the crypto market, that's based here in America. So fantastic, awesome stuff. I love it, Brad. You're a champion, dude. If you're watching my video, I wish that you comment on my video. That'll make my life. You're the coolest dude ever. You so brilliant. I don't know. There's something about the way he engages that I'd say that he has a script, but you can kind of tell that he doesn't, because he's going off of things that we've heard him say in the past, but now he's saying it on Fox and Business, right? To hundreds of thousands of the people who don't have crypto, right? Now, a lot of people, that's another thing to keep in mind, is that Fox Business is not talking to, millennials, the people who are the majority stakeholder in this ecosystem. Instead, Fox Business is targeted at people in their mid-30s to, retired. That's because Fox is a conservative network, and if you look at age demographics, liberals are typically younger audience. The liberal mentality is skewed to youth, whereas the conservative mentality is skewed towards age. And it's a very interesting paradigm, but that exists because as we get older, the concept of liberal and conservative shifts as the oldest, most conservative people, die of old age or whatever as they get older, while the younger generation sees the centrist model as being conservative to their desires, right? And so it's really important to keep in mind when you're listening to things like this, who is the target audience and how could that impact your investment in this ecosystem? How could that affect the demographic of the investors within this ecosystem, right? really important concepts to keep in mind whenever you're watching anything on TV. It's not just about what's being said by who and in what way, as we broke down in this video, but also, again, who's it being said to? Who is the target audience? Who is Fox News's big, or Fox Business Network's largest demographic? And as I just laid out, it's people on average over the age of 35. That's not me saying that there's not conservatives, the 18-year-old conservatives, right? My little brother was a conservative, I think since he was like 12, right? He identified as a conservative. So it's not saying that, you can't be a conservative if you're younger, and you can't be a liberal if you're older, right? George Soros, perfect example. He's apparently a super liberal. He's like the demon. He's so liberal, I guess. I don't know. But, it's like, that's the political nonsense, aside. I'm not sitting here trying to hate or support any one side. I'm just pointing out the real world statistics in regards to political identification and how politics actually works, how these spectrums are formed and how your age and position in life help cultivate that viewpoint, and how the mainstream media takes advantage of that viewpoint when they're creating these narratives on TV, and why they use the language they do. The reason that you heard so much very generalized terms is not only because it's on mainstream media where most people don't understand the technical jargon. Many of us in the XRP community who've been here for a long time understand, but it's not just about the lack of that jargon. The reason that jargon is missing from this is because, again, this is meant to reach a larger demographic. And so really, really important that everybody keeps in mind all these little facets and nuances involved in advertising, right? Because that's really what this is for Ripple. This interview is an advertisement. And so keep that in mind. It was a fantastic advertisement, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that I provided some insights that other people hadn't even thought of yet. That's what I love to do, is come out here and speculate. Again, I'm not a financial advisor to anybody out there. I haven't said it yet in this video. Probably should have said it earlier. I'm not a financial advisor, so please take everything that I have said with a grain of salt. But if you think that I said something interesting or, I don't know, entertaining or whatever, or you disagree with anything I've said, leave it in the comment section below. I always love engaging with everybody in my comment section. You all know that. Most of my regular viewers, that I love engaging with you guys in the comment section. I do my very best to engage with everybody, because without you guys who tune in regularly, I wouldn't be able to do this. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning into my video. If you're new, please feel free to join the Martian community by hitting that subscribe, ringing that bell so you can stay up to date with all my newest content videos. And if you really enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that like on your way out. As always, I've been Jade, the XRP Martian, and I can't wait to see all of you in my next video on Mars.